Well, happy Thursday. Man, I've been getting prepped for this for a long time, a very long time, because there's just so much to get into. This is Behind the Smoke Screen, where you get empowered and informed on how to hold politicians and the political class accountable. And I've got a doozy that I know is going to be controversial. Um, a lot of people are solid in their camps. Um, I'm having an issue with Rumble again, darn it all. Um, when it comes to protecting the Second in Minnesota or Second Amendment in Minnesota, there are several organizations involved, and I'm going to jump into this stuff because so many people get duped and they just don't understand what it takes to actually be politically effective. And I'll give you a clue. If you want to be politically effective, if you want to be politically heard, if you want to be politically respected, as I always say, you must be politically feared, because there's only two choices, right? You join the club and you become liked. And the club, again, is not just politicians. It's a lot of outside groups. It's people within the party itself. The Republican Party, I'm sure it's the same in the Democrat Party. I'm gonna go to look at some comments because I'm trying a new mic and I want to see if people. All right, it looks like people can hear me, or people would be saying they can't. All right, so those are the two choices. You can be liked or adored by politicians, and for some people, that is their goal. And for the people who have that goal, I can tell you their goal ultimately is to join the club, or maybe they're already in the club, but they want to be liked, they want to be adored, they want politicians to return their phone calls. So you can be liked or you can be respected. And those might sound like they're pretty similar, but I can tell you in politics, two very, very different things. There's either you can be liked or you can be respected. In order to be respected, as I say, you have to be politically feared. If you're not politically feared, you will not be politically respected. And if you are just simply liked or adored by politicians, I can tell you they do not respect you. They certainly don't fear you. So I want to tee that up right on the get go because that is so important to understand. And a lot of people don't grasp that. And frankly, it is because it's hard to understand that, right? We got Minnesota nice around here. You're supposed to be nice to people. Well, look, you can be nice to politicians and hold them accountable and instill political fear, and which will return political respect from those politicians if they know they are willing to hold them accountable, especially come election time, because that is like the creme de la creme of political punishment is coming after them at election time. And I can tell you this because that's what they do to each other in the Capitol. If you don't toe the line, they threaten to primary you. Like that is the epitome of a political threat is find somebody to primary them and get rid of them. So today I'm just going to jump right into my good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to Minnesota Second Amendment rights, because there are largely two groups out there. And I know, oh man, I know people are going to be so upset when I get into this because, again, they're in their camps and they just think one group is great and the other group's no good. But we're going to dive into the weeds here and show you what exactly happens and what makes good groups good, bad groups bad. So to dive into this, first of all, the good. Who is the good Second Amendment group in Minnesota right now? I will show you, and I'll talk about why, of course. The good group is Minnesota Gun Rights. And I know there's some, swamp friendly people out there that are going, oh my gosh, Mort, you've lost your mind. MGR is no good. It's the Dorr brothers. Well, I'm here to tell you the people who talk badly about Minnesota gun rights and who create these websites that you've seen floating around, if you're into this issue at all, and I know this is a very passionate issue for people, so probably a lot of people have seen these websites. The websites, like the politicians, Republican politicians, created a webpage called, I think it's mnscammers.com. And what they do is they use that website to attack any group who instills political fear against them. And Minnesota Gun Rights was on the receiving end of that. So the difference here to talk about Minnesota Gun Rights, what they are willing and able and have a record of doing is holding anti-gun politicians accountable when it counts most, and that's at election time. That is what matters the absolute most. I can tell you it doesn't really matter all that much if they're down to the Capitol and they're going to the committee meetings. That stuff is very much secondary. And I know some people are going to be upset that I'm saying that, but that is the reality. A lot of these battles are not fought inside the Capitol building. Okay. They're just not. And the people who tell you they are, they're full of it. They're the people that are club members that want to be liked. So they go down there and rub elbows with the politicians. So Minnesota Gun Rights is an amazing gun rights group. One, because they're not afraid of politicians. Two, they don't kiss their butt. Three, they seek to instill political pain in order to be politically respected. Now, let me tell you this. Politicians will not admit when they actually politically respect a group, because oftentimes groups or individuals that command that amount of respect, it's because they are instilling political fear. So this is always the tactic of the political class to just attack these groups, attack people like myself, like Action for Liberty, Minnesota Right to Life, these organizations, and there's not many out there. So I'm not going to have a whole lot of these good, bad, and ugly bits, because there's probably about 5 or 6 good, effective political groups in the entire state of Minnesota. I would say 95% plus are pretty meaningless. And I would say even further, a lot of them don't really have a sincere interest in their agenda. They just use it to create a wedge and fundraise and ultimately have a career. Okay. Because that's what this is to a lot of people. They don't care about the issues, they care about their financial livelihood. The politicians, the outside groups included. That's what makes Minnesota Gun Rights different. And in fact, I know Ben Dorr. I know him very well. And the people that accuse him of going home and swimming in his piggy bank in a pile of cash, it's ridiculous. I think every time I grab dinner with him, he pulls up in like a 1992 Toyota Camry. This guy is not rolling in the dough here. And I don't mean that to offend him. I'm just saying the people who say, oh, they're just in it to raise money. No, these guys are effective. They hold politicians accountable. I know they have radio ads right now up in Cook County going after Grant Housechild. I've seen all sorts of ads on Facebook. I can't open Facebook and scroll and not see them going after these 4, I think they may be even going after 5 Senate Democrats. So these guys are willing and they are equipped to go after politicians. Okay. People will actually donate to that organization. They're effective at fundraising, which I should take a moment and just say this, because I know the amount of money in politics is disgusting. And you can hate that as much as you want. I don't like it either. I wish we didn't have to spend a nickel in politics. I wish we could just influence people with our argument. But have you ever tried to actually influence a liberal with a sound, logical argument? It ain't happening. Okay. And I'm sure the folks out there like me, you probably are not willing to be open-minded when it comes to the radical lefts trying to say, no, we just need to, tax the snot out of everybody and give it to everybody else because that makes them feel really good and virtuous. No, you're not going to buy that. So they are equipped to go after politicians at election time. And I'm going to get into a lot of this stuff as I dive deeper into this, because I'm going to show you the receipts again of what I'm talking about and why I'm so passionate about this. Because, and I should say this, none of the stuff is personal to me. Like, as hard as that might be to believe for some people, I've told many, many people in the Capitol, people I've butted heads with, look, it's not personal to me. I care about your behavior, your actions, and when you misbehave. That's it. Like, I think, Rob Dorr is probably a nice guy. Brian Strouser, not so sure. I think he's a raging liberal. But they could be nice people, but that doesn't mean they're effective at actually fighting for your Second Amendment. So Minnesota Gun Rights, that's the good organization. And I guess I should finish my point. When it comes to the amount of money in politics, it's disgusting. I wish it wasn't real, but it is the reality. Okay. And I think we have to recognize that if you're going to create political influence, if you're going to create political pain for politicians who deserve it, you have to be funded. Like, unless you can get people to go door knock for free, unless you get the post office to mail stuff for free, if you can find printers to print stuff for free, if you can find databases where you can put your list of people in for free, it's just not a reality. Okay. So the reality is there's money in politics. and Minnesota gun rights has been effective at raising money so they can go back and wield those resources against politicians that stab people in the back. So that's what I have to say about MGR. I'm going to get into a little bit more about it. And I know the real MGR fans know exactly what I'm talking about. They know they are the only no compromise gun rights group in the entire state of Minnesota, which cannot be said about the bad gun rights group in Minnesota. And here we go. People can go ooh and ah and be mad here, but the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, this organization, they frankly pale in comparison to Minnesota gun rights in a variety of ways, such a huge variety of ways. First of all, from their tactics, going back to, do you want to be liked by politicians who will then manipulate you? I can guarantee you. Or do you want to be respected by them? Minnesota, the Gun Owners Caucus, I would say that they are liked by politicians. And why is that? They're part of the club. They don't hold politicians accountable at the Capitol. I mean, they literally watched, I think his name was Rod Skoy in the state Senate back in 2015, vote against, this is a Democrat, vote against a constitutional carry vote that was brought to the floor by Brandon Peterson. Rod Skoy votes against constitutional carry. What happens in the next election cycle in 2016? Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus endorses this guy, even though he has on the record voting against constitutional carry. Like, that's just one quick example. And I wish I had the time because I've just been swamped to actually pull the video. You can look the stuff up on YouTube for yourself. And I think on their website, it still has him listed as being endorsed. And maybe when I get into their website, I'll show you that. So the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, they're no good. They're not effective at defending your Second Amendment rights. And let me give you the proof. So let me ask you this. This is fun. I'm having fun with this. Do you think a legitimate gun rights group in Minnesota would donate to Democrats? Would they donate to the Minnesota DFL, a legitimate gun rights group? Would they donate to the Minnesota DFL party that is out there right now trying to take guns away? And I saw a new bill introduced today that was by far the craziest gun control bill down there. Well, let's take a look. This is right from the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board's website. You look at the top here, contributions to political parties. The organization I'm referring to here, it's the Minnesota Gun Owners Political Action Committee, which is one of the Gun Owners Caucus's 3 organizations. And I think I'm going to have time to talk about all 3 here tonight because there's stuff to be said about all 3. So here's their donations. This top record here, the HRCC, if you've heard me talk before, you know that is like the Republican swamp down at the Capitol. That stands for the House Republican Campaign Committee that spends thousands of dollars against some of the best voting legislators in the state. So they gave $300 to the HRCC. And look at this. The Minnesota DFL State Central Committee, they donated $500 to the DFL, almost twice as much as they donated to the Republican Party. So would a legitimate gun rights group that can be trusted to go to the Capitol and go to battle for your Second Amendment rights against Democrats, would they have donated to the Democrat Party? I would think we'd all be saying, hell no, they wouldn't have donated to the Democrat Party. So that right on the surface, if you just kind of ignore their endorsements of anti-gun politicians, and their record of repeatedly doing so, then refusing to withdraw and take away those endorsements, go to the next level, they donate to Democrats. And now they claim they're down at the Capitol fighting Democrats to protect your gun rights. Well, which is it? Are you donating to them, or are you fighting for them, or fighting the Democrats and trying to stop gun control? So that on its face, absolutely ridiculous. There's really no excuse for that. But I'll dive deeper, because there's so much more. There's so much more. So I know the Gun Owners Caucus and Rob Doar in particular, and again, probably a very nice guy. That's the thing in politics. A lot of nice people. Are they principled? No. Do they care more about being liked than they are about being respected and effective? Hell yeah. They want to be loved by politicians. And it oftentimes doesn't even matter what party, right? They want to be loved by Democrats, loved by Republicans. And here's an example. So I think it was a House file, was it 396? I should say in this next thing I pull up, but one of these gun control bills, I think it was the safe storage bill, who the author, I'll get into her later. Apparently, as I'm diving into Twitter and looking at trying to piece this together, somehow the Gun Owners Caucus and the author of the bill, Representative Jamie Becker Finn, somehow they got connected. Who knows? Did she initiate it? Did the Gun Owners Caucus initiate it? I don't know. I won't speculate. But somehow they got connected. And the Gun Owners Caucus was asked about, well, what do you think of this bill? You know, what do you think of this? And I can tell you what Minnesota Gun Rights would respond to a author of a gun control bill asking, or maybe I shouldn't put these words in MGR's mouth, but I feel like I'm safe. I'll just say if it's me, if an author of a gun control bill came to me and said, give me your input on this. What do you think about this bill? What's your feedback? I'd say, I'm against gun control bills. Like, that's it. That's the answer. But that wasn't the answer the Gun Owners Caucus gave to Representative Jamie Becker Finn. Instead, they worked on an amendment. You can see here, I'm pretty new to Twitter, but so if you're new too, the bottom part is the initial tweet. And the Gun Owners Caucus tweets, Representative Brad Tabke, the Democrat out of my district here in Shakopee, who beat me in my last election, is now offering the A5 amendment to House File 396. This is an amendment we, the Gun Owners Caucus, worked with the bill author, Jamie Becker Finn, to ensure that quick access to safes could be used for self-defense purposes. And then they respond to their tweet saying, this amendment has been adopted. Why is a gun rights organization, a supposed legitimate one, working on with the DFL to do amendments to gun control bills? And it makes me wonder, and I've talked about this before, I try to give people credit and the benefit of the doubt that they're not morons. So either the Gun Owners Caucus are idiots or they're complicit. And I don't know what room there is in the middle, because when you have a bad bill, keep it a bad bill. What they're doing is they're making it easier for this gun control bill to pass. Like, force the Democrats to vote on this bill. And ultimately, what they're also doing, and this is what really is unbelievable to me, but it goes to show that, you know, they just want to be liked. So they're willing to sit with Democrats and help them craft gun control legislation. And then they work with Representative Brad Tabke, who is largely still a purple district. Like, the district is up for grabs. It's gone back and forth. It was Tabke in 2018, me in 2020, Tabke in 2022. Brad Tabke, and this is the reality, okay? This is what people need to understand. And apparently what the Gun Owners Caucus either doesn't understand or they do and they don't care. Brad Tabke is going to use that as political cover. And he's as anti-gun as it gets. But what he's going to be able to do, and he's using, so again, the Gun Owners Caucus wants to be liked and used and manipulated, which is what Brad Tabke is going to do. Anybody who says, well, Brad, you're anti-gun, Brad Tabke is going to say, mark my words, he's going to say, whoa, I worked with the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus on an amendment to that bill. And you know what? We got that amendment passed. So he's going to say, I'm willing to work with the gun rights groups in Minnesota. Just look at my record. I got this amendment passed. That will happen 1000% sure. And this is a great example of the Gun Owners Caucus either willfully being used or they're idiots and they don't understand they're going to be used in a swing district. And again, the answer when an author of a gun control bill goes to a gun rights group, the only acceptable answer should be, we don't support gun control. You don't help them craft amendments to their gun control bills, making it easier for it to become law. Like, that's, you know, take it from 100% crazy bill to 98% crazy. That just might be all it takes for, you know, the Senate Democrats to pass the bill. So another example here where they are willing to work with Democrats, again, because they want to be liked. They just want to be adored by politicians. And that is what makes them meaningless. And mark my words, if you think the politicians in St. Paul if you think they respect Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, if you think they fear them, I'm telling you, they have zero fear. The Gun Owners Caucus instills no fear, which means they get no real political respect, which means they cannot effectively defend your gun rights. And that is, it's just that simple, quite honestly. So, I was thinking about this. I showed this the donation. I think it was data from 2018, and I saw I watched Brian Strouser do one of his videos about, well, it was just last week, because I was curious, what are these clowns saying? And he was saying that they're being accused of having no money, that they can't defend the Second Amendment, and he's saying it's just not true. That they have won a PAC, okay, and that's the PAC is who donated to the DFL, Democrats, Democrat Party. Then they have their C4, a nonprofit, and I kind of use that term loosely because, well, I'll get into that. And so these PACs, right? These are the PACs that can get involved in politics and actually politic and donate to candidates, donate to parties. And so that's one mechanism where a C4 or a nonprofit is more of an issue advocacy group, and they can only inform people where people stand on issues. So I'm going to kind of dive into these different organizations. So the PAC, if you look it up, and they're talking about how well equipped they are to fight for your Second Amendment rights. Well, here's right from the Campaign Finance Board's website, Minnesota Gun Owners Political Action Committee. They have not filed a report in almost 3 years. Okay. The last time they filed a report was June of 2020. And you know what that tells me, and anybody who, follows these campaign finance reports, they raise no money. They raise no money. They spend no money. Like if you take money in, you spend money. Like for me, it was a campaign committee. You must report what you're doing. That's the law. If you're going to politic, and you raise more than $750 or spend more than $750, you have to create a committee, and you must file a report to the CFB. So, are they a legitimate and effective gun rights group when they haven't filed a CFB report in 3 years? Do you think that they're equipped to go to battle over your Second Amendment anytime in the near future? I would say no, because they haven't filed a single report in almost 3 years. And that is their PAC, right? So the PAC donates to the DFL. Now the PAC apparently hasn't been able to raise money in the last 3 years. But then there's other organizations. And I think I'm going to, here, I'll just jump into this. Then you have their C4, okay? Their C4, which again is a nonprofit, or supposed to be. And what the heck? I'll do this. I'm going to show you their website. Share my screen. And here we go. All right. So this is their website. Oh man, that gets tiny, tiny, tiny down there. But I'll read it from my other monitor. It says that the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus is a Minnesota nonprofit organization recognized by the IRS as a 501c4 nonprofit. And that's what this says right here, but you probably can't read that. That's what it says. So I thought, well, I'm going to check it out, because I know this is what Minnesota Gun Rights got in trouble about. They fell behind in filing paperwork, and they owned it. They've corrected it, and they've since straightened it all out. And I see all these attacks coming from largely Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus and the media and politicians in particular going after Minnesota gun rights. I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's just pull up what's going on with Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. Like literally, this was just like 5 days ago. I just want to check it out. Well, here is right from the IRS website. And take a peek. Auto revocation list. Revocation date, almost 2 years ago. They haven't been a nonprofit recognized by the IRS in almost 2 years. And if you're not a nonprofit with the IRS, I guess that means you are a for-profit business. So what on earth are they doing with their donations? But to kind of go a little further, they're automatically revoked, as it says here, for not filing a Form 990 series for 3 consecutive years. Okay? So for 3 consecutive years, their C4, their nonprofit, their issue advocacy group that they claim all over the place is the most respected and effective gun rights group in Minnesota. If they're not sending in their 990s, it means they're either just not doing it at all. Well, then I guess that's exactly what that means, is they're not sending in any 990s. Because you can send in 990s, I think, if I got this right. Or maybe it means you've raised less than $50,000. I think that's actually the rule. So either they're raising less than $50,000 a year, or they're just not sending them in at all. So either they're not raising money or they're not in compliance with the IRS. Either way, their nonprofit status has been revoked. And for the people who are like, well, MGR did that too. Look, I can pull it up. I'll pull it up right now, as a matter of fact, because I'm in here. Let's see. I'll share my screen again here. I wasn't planning on doing this, but bear with me. I brought it up. I'm going to pull it up and I'll share this screen with you. And then I want to dive into this a little deeper because there's still another organization of theirs. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to pull this up, share my screen again. And what is the name of this tab? Here we go. All right, so I'll just pull this up. So here's the same warning, right? So this is where a lot of haters would say, see, it says the same thing. But if you scroll down to this determination letter, I think it's the top one, the determination letter. There. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. It opened a new window. But it's dated August 2019 and says we're pleased to determine you're exempt from federal this letter. You've resolved your questions, your tax and your exempt status. So they overcame that issue in 2019. And I have a feeling you didn't see that, but you can go to the IRS website and it's super easy. If you Google IRS nonprofit status, and there's just a big yellow button, you click on it and you will see for yourself all the same stuff that I'm showing you here. So I want to break this down a little bit. You got, because there's a lot to this. I didn't realize they had so many organizations. Started diving into it. You've got their PAC, their Political Action Committee, that donates to Democrats, that hasn't filed the CFB report in almost 3 years. And then you have two nonprofits, apparently. You have one nonprofit that lost its nonprofit status. And then they have something where I think they do some sort of like youth or like gun safety stuff. So I know there's an organization, as I've been trying to find out, well, tell me more about some of these C4s. I started diving into this and I wanted to figure out, well, I want the facts and the receipts here. So I'm going to share another window and let's take a peek at this. And this will dive into a little bit of MGR again too. So there's an outfit called GuideStar where they consolidate these IRS filings and then they open them up to the public and you get some information. So hopefully you can see this. Maybe I'll keep my screen like that, but so you scroll through this and here's the Minnesota Gun Owner Support Fund. So this is the group that does firearm safety education. And again, a nonprofit. And there's no record of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, their other C4 in this database whatsoever, which would jive with the fact that they haven't filed with the IRS in at least 3 years. But I at least saw this right here and went, well, okay, it's something. Gross receipts, $0. This says assets, $0. But this is the group that is going to go fight for your gun rights. But you look right here, here's the Minnesota Firearms Association. And if you're wondering who the heck is that, because I haven't talked about them, I stumbled upon this the other day. Well, I'll show you. Let me switch my screens here. Okay, this one. Yeah, that might be a little tough to see too. Maybe I can blow it up. Boom, 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 boom. So here you go. It's name of organization, Minnesota Firearms Association, doing business as Minnesota Gun Rights. Okay, so there you go. The Minnesota Firearms Association. You can look at the employer identification number ending in 3485 if you want to remember that. And then I'll flip back over to this other screen. And which one is that? It's this guy. Here's that 3485 and gross receipts, $390,000. Assets, $411,000. Who is prepared to actually go to war over your Second Amendment rights? And who doesn't have a record of voting or donating to Democrats? And who has a record of instilling political fear in the eyes of the political class and the politicians? So much so that the political class and the Republicans themselves create websites attacking them. But that's what happens. If you come after politicians and you instill political fear, they of course attack you. Of course they do. And then the other analogy I have to make here is I had some people, I was going back and forth with somebody on Facebook about this stuff, and they sent me some links to like some news sites saying, see, these guys are no good, referring to MGR. And I just couldn't help but laugh and go, man, you realize the people who put those websites together are the same people, the same politicians that Minnesota Gun Rights holds their feet to the fire for. Of course they're creating this stuff. But if you want to pretend like everything on the internet's true, I mean, do you believe in the Trump-Russian collusion? I bet if you Google that, you'd find 1,000 CNN articles about it. You'd find Adam Schiff, pencil neck Adam Schiff out there talking about Russians, or Trump's in bed with the Russians. But a lot of people are not willing to see it in both ways, that they know the whole Russian collusion's BS, although they can find 10,000 news stories about it. But for some reason, people think that when they see these sorts of hit pieces against certain organizations, or even myself, they just take it as fact. So, you have to be a little skeptical here and then provide a little critical thinking. So that is what I have for that. And I have some more because it just keeps on coming. And again, this is not personal for me, not at all. And you can believe me or not, but what I was shocked with. So for my own primary last year, I did a debate with Bob Lunan, and Bob has long been on the record for not supporting constitutional carry. And that bill came up in our debate. And the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, who makes a habit out of endorsing politicians, which I would tell you is a very, very bad habit to get into for any organization, because it becomes that circle jerk where they endorse the politicians and the politicians praise them. And then people donate to those organizations. Well, apparently not to Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. And the circle goes round and round, the club. And during the debate, Bob had this to say about constitutional carry.
Bill, I don't support the constitutional carry bill the way it is written right now. Not everyone should be able to buy any gun and carry it anywhere.
So Bob, obviously, when he says not everybody should be able to buy a gun and do whatever they want, he doesn't understand what the bill does. First and foremost, he has no clue. And I've heard him say this before. So it just speaks to his ignorance, which when you say you don't support a bill because of something that you think the bill does that it doesn't do, it just reeks of ignorance. But he said, I don't support constitutional carry bill. And he says, as it's written right now. Well, at the time, there were two constitutional carry bills, mine and Eric Lucero's. Mine was a straight up clean bill that just said no permit to carry. That's it. That's all constitutional carry does, too, if you don't know. It doesn't change who can buy a gun or even what age to buy a gun. All it says is you don't need a permit from your local sheriff to carry a firearm. That's it. That's a clean bill. And so when I sent that footage to the Gun Owners Caucus and said, hey, look, you guys gave this guy an A grade, but he's flat out, and this is like the third election cycle in a row, is saying he doesn't support constitutional carry. Yeah, they refused to do anything about it. They just kept his A grade there and took him at his word. I mean, it's so pathetic. And it's a perfect example of the swamp protecting the swamp. Like the Gun Owners Caucus, if they are stuck in that position, like they've got an incumbent Republican legislator who I did a SAPA bill, I did constitutional carry, did stand your ground, got a great record on the Second Amendment, and I've got the incumbency. And then you've got Bob Lunan, who's like the 4-time loser and has said for years he's against constitutional carry. And you're the Gun Owners Caucus. You're like, man, I can imagine what that must have been like. They're going, boy, Mortensen, like the politicians of the Capitol don't like him. He refuses to be blood brothers with the politicians, but Bob will be blood brothers with the politicians, and he'll help protect us and we can help protect him. I guarantee at the end of the day, it ended up being Republican leadership, probably Kurt Dowd himself, who said, no Gun Owners Caucus, no Rob Dorr, no Brian Strouser. You have to help my buddy Bob Lunan here. And they did their, Kurt Dowd's bidding, and they kept him A grade. I still beat him in the primary, but it's still a great example of, you literally sent video proof to this bullshit gun rights organization that, look, you're giving a guy an A grade who's against this issue that is passed in like 27 other states. And they still say, yeah, so what? It's about staying in the club and being liked. It's not about delivering results for so many of these organizations. So I'm going to scan my stuff, because I think that might be about the gist of it. Although I still have to talk about, I've only covered the good and I've covered the bad. I haven't covered the ugly yet. So I will get to the ugly. But let me make sure I got everything else. It looks like I do. So the good gun rights group in Minnesota, Minnesota Gun Rights. The haters can hate me all they want. I just showed you a bunch of proof. A legitimate gun rights group doesn't donate to Democrats. They don't work with Democrats to pass gun control bills, which they flat out said in this tweet. And I thought it was funny because Brian Strouser in that video last week said, people are spreading rumors that we worked with Democrats to offer amendments to gun control bills. And Brian Strouser in his video said that's a lie. He did this video like 2 days after his own organization tweeted about working with Democrats to pass amendments on gun control bills. And then Strouser gets on the internet and says, nah, that never happened. Bullshit. There you go. You can probably find it on their Twitter feed still. So now the good MGR, the bad, the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, and then the ugly when it comes to Minnesota gun rights in Minnesota. Of course, it's Representative Jamie Becker-Finn, because she's authored all these gun control bills. And for those of you that are like, oh boy, Mort, you're just saying she's like, a hideous woman. And sure she is, but I'm just saying she's ugly on the issue. That's what I'm mean. She's ugly on the issue of gun rights. She's anti-gun. She wants to take your guns away. And but she doesn't care what happens in her own neck of the woods in Roseville and people, shooting each other up. Doesn't matter. But she wants to go after law-abiding gun owners. So that is what makes her really ugly. Maybe some other things. So that is what I have for you guys today. I don't have a Rhino of the Week. I actually lost my little styrofoam head and my little stuffed animal thing. So I'm still looking for some new props for my Rhino of the Week. And I do have a couple people in mind. One of them sitting right here, but I will spare him this week. And I'll come back with the next week. So I can't emphasize it enough. If you want to be politically heard, if you want to be politically respected, you have to be politically feared. If your goal is to be politically liked, your goal is just to join the club. I can tell you that right now. And you may not even realize it. But if that's all you're trying to do is be liked by politicians, they will manipulate you just like they do to the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. Thanks, everybody. I will see you here probably in the next week.